Kind of like what you're talking about. Okay, so we got a source, drain, gate. Is that the architecture? And it's quite significant in this kind of research. Problem is, you're talking about trying to contact a single tube either side. You're then trying to bring another tube into here. This here is much bigger than 12 nanometers. Yes, it would be, but again, it's not going to be that dramatic. However, it's the inner diameter that becomes very important. Now, we don't know if that inner diameter is going to be 7 angstroms or going to be slightly larger, or maybe 8 or 9. Structure, but of course, that's height here.
If a young New Mexico State University nanophysicist's dreams come true, the state of New Mexico may one day be supplying solar-generated electric power to the rest of the country. His work on organic solar cells, which can potentially provide cost-effective solar power to residences, business, and industry, has been made possible in part by the purchase of cutting-edge equipment through the NSF EPSCoR program. EPSCoR, Experimental Program to Simulate Competitive Research, is funded by the National Science Foundation in cooperation with 27 states to promote the development of science and technology resources. The program is intended to increase capacity to secure federal funding for research and development, which leads to economic growth. EPSCoR's investment has enabled NMSU to attract Professor Shay Curran and rapidly start a program in nanosciences.
When we started looking at organic solar cells, we were looking at the structure of these solar cells, which had low efficiencies of maybe 1 to 2%. And we were trying to figure out why they weren't actually working better. So in very classical terms, we did all the right material analysis, material synthesis, but when we actually reconstructed the device, it didn't work properly. It just didn't give us the efficiency that we needed. So when we got the material, we started scanning the material, found out that if we treated it in a certain way, we could get a better distribution of the materials, better morphologies, and from that then we were able to construct a much more efficient solar cell. The consequence being that we were able to, within a very short period of time from that analysis, take the world record for organic solar cells with nanotubes molded in.
Professor Curran has distinguished himself by publishing over 40 peer-reviewed journal articles and 20 conference proceedings and book chapters, and by having his work cited over 600 times by his peers. In addition, his preliminary work in polymer nanotube composites at Trinity College in Dublin has initiated a whole new field of research. As is evident from these accomplishments, Professor Curran arrived at NMSU with considerable academic and entrepreneurial experience, which allowed him to be carefully selective of the equipment he would need to purchase so that he could set up a unique program of research. The funding for this was provided by NSF EPSCoR.
So when I came here, having worked on AFMs, atomic force microscopes, and STMs, scanning tunneling microscopes, both in the Max Planck Institute and in Rensselaer, I decided that I actually really needed something a little bit more specific to my needs. So I decided to pick the near-field optical microscope. But the other thing I needed to do is I needed to understand the chemistry and material analysis of what was going on at the nanoscale. So I decided to also pick up an instrument called the Raman microscope, so a spectrometer essentially. And by combining both systems and using multiple laser lines with that system, has allowed us and enabled us to be able to scan multiple materials and multiple devices, understand the architecture of those devices, understand what happens between the different atoms of the materials, and from that being able to build a better device.
For Curran, students are an invaluable element in his research.
The role that students play here is very, very important. It is one thing for a professor to have an idea about how to do things. It is another thing to get into the engine room and actually develop and produce that idea, that concept, that device, that material. The students provide energy, enthusiasm, a lot of cleverness. And I have been very lucky in my research group. I have an exceptional number of students who are all very brilliant and very talented. And they have produced an overwhelming number of papers. They've produced an enormous number of results that have led to, in a group that is only 2.5 years old, we are involved in 2 world records in terms of nanoelectronics. These materials are used in research.
Professor Curran has mentored a number of undergraduate and graduate students from physics, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, and chemistry who work in his labs, co-author professional papers, and are preparing to lead the next generation of nanoscientists. Several came to NMSU because of Curran's nano group in the physics department.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to do as soon as I got here was to look into different research groups around the university. And even before I applied here, I knew that there was the NanoPhysics research group, which I'm now a part of. I'm involved in both the solar work and the field emission work that has come off from the group. And this means a lot to me, really, because I'm 2 years into my graduate program here, and I've been accorded a lot of scientific freedom to do what I want to do. And I know that those results were a result of actual work from my side, and I had a contribution on both the projects.
The students have greatly benefited from access to the Renishaw-Raman spectrometer and the Vico near-field optical microscope funded by NSF EPSCoR. These have supported Curran students in conducting research studies that are competitive with those anywhere in the world.
I think that because of all the instruments we have, like the Raman spectrometer, we're able to get data that is comparable with any university anywhere in the world. We have good facilities, and that has helped me get results and therefore publish my work.
In partnership with scientists from Wake Forest University and Rensselaer, Shea Curran and his students have achieved 2 world records in organic nanoelectronics.
For the solar cell work that we did, we were able to understand that on giving a particular kind of treatment to the film that we prepared, we found that there was a distribution of C60s in a mesophase inside the polymer that was used to make the device. So we could get a better understanding of what was actually going on at the nanoscale, simply because we had that particular instrument. And if you think about it, we could not have done that without the ensemble, because if we could not have used any other instrument, even an SEM or a TE ensemble.
Those students who work with Shea Curran are learning to conduct interdisciplinary research and are becoming competent in multiple fields outside their home departments. Moreover, the drive to pursue new paths in nano research has led to new discoveries. For example, Madhu Kandadai is working on a corrosion project with carbon nanotubes that is the first of its kind.
I'm mainly involved in the chemistry of carbon nanotubes, so our effort has been to modify the properties of carbon nanotubes by reacting them with different materials. Corrosion is it's one of the a very interesting project because it involves not only chemistry, it also involves engineering, and it will be applied in industry. So we're basically working with carbon nanotubes and conducting polymer. It's called polyaniline, and we've been trying to see its corrosion inhibition properties when applied on cold rolled steel.
The students are stimulated by being able to work on a number of different projects. This opportunity has helped them to plan career paths that best suit their interests and capacities.
Well, I want to be involved in research and later on become a professor. So I've learned a very important thing by being involved in all these projects, and that is that science is becoming very interdisciplinary. I have a bachelor's in chemical engineering, but now I'm doing physics and chemistry and a little bit of biology, and I can see that this is where the future is going to be.
New Mexico EPSCoR's investment in bringing Professor Curran to NMSU and providing a competitive start in research has the potential to result in economic development for the state of New Mexico. Former governor and current dean of the College of Business and vice provost for economic development, Gary Carruthers, leads the Arrowhead Center, which will help Professor Curran bring the results of his research to commercialization.
EPSCoR's challenge is to build capacity in the state of New Mexico. And the reason we are an EPSCoR state is it's been deemed by NSF not to have the kind of capacity we need. So they make the initial investments, and that starts the process of building the capacity. In the case of Shea Curran, buying him equipment to begin to do the research that he does so well. And as that research progresses, along the way, we're going to end up with a product. Shay Curran happens to be someone who is very, very, very entrepreneurial. And he believes that one day he's going to create a nanotechnology product that's going to have a lot to do with revolutionizing energy in this country. That's exactly the kind of attitude we want, and that's exactly what EPSCoR is supposed to do, is to buy him the capacity, get him started, and then one of these days we'll do something commercial with a fine piece of research. I know Shay is the holder of multiple patents. I'm going to guess he's somewhere between 7 and 10 patents. And for a relatively young person working in this field, that's a pretty significant contribution already. And so I think once again it demonstrates his entrepreneurial side too. He will begin to put together these patents to the point that he'll have something very useful and something very valuable for the university, for Shay, and for New Mexico.
Dean of Engineering Steve Castillo believes that Curran's collaboration with students and faculty members across colleges and departments is indicative of the synergistic way research can be developed at NMSU. He sees Curran's work in energy as very important to the efforts of NMSU to establish a national center for research in alternative energies.
His work is establishing a lead for how we're going to collaborate in the future. In the area of energy, the solar cell work is particularly interesting to us. We're doing a lot of work in alternative energy in the College of Engineering, and Shay's work that he's done in conjunction with other researchers at other universities in solar cells, in particular organic solar cells, is of great interest because of the possibility of low-cost production of these types of solar cells.
Dean of Arts and Sciences Waded Cruzado Salas also values Curran's dual strengths in cutting-edge research and entrepreneurship. She sees the initial collaborative investment made by her college, the university, and EPSCoR as having already brought large returns.
Well, let me start by saying that Shay Curran is a model for the type of faculty that New Mexico State University should hire and nurture. He's on the cutting edge of his field of research, nanotechnology. He publishes in world-class journals, and he's an entrepreneur seeking way to transfer his technology-based research into practical and useful tools. His work in agile chameleon coatings can also be used in the nation's defense. So Shay is able to translate his research into unique classroom and laboratory experiences for his graduate students. None of this could be accomplished without the startup funds provided by NMSU, the College of Arts and Sciences, and particularly by EPSCoR. The most important short-term significance of Dr. Curran's research is that students benefit by learning from a recognized leader in the field.
Meanwhile, for the present, Curran is focused on the future and developing a world-class nano program at NMSU. His ambition is to push a stronger alternative energy program and, with his collaborators, bring nano-organic solar cells to a competitive position as an attractive alternative to fossil fuels and nuclear power. Along the way, his drive and enthusiasm for research will educate and train tomorrow's scientists and entrepreneurs in the fields of physics, chemistry, and engineering.